On this episode of American Travelers, we're hiking the Shirley Trail at Squaw Valley that takes you to the top at 8,200 feet. Then checking out some vintage wooden boats at the Sierra Boat Company in Carnelian Bay.
We travel the world looking for fun and new adventures. I'm Kari.
I'm Dave.
We made it.
Welcome to American Travelers.
Dave grew up as a professional drummer before he went into the video production world as a sound mixer.
Kari followed her mother's footsteps as a nurse. She loves distance running and even finished 2 100-mile races.
Our purpose is to show awesome destinations and share our new adventures. We've got a bunch of great stops to show you,
We'll give some tips on how to budget your trip.
along with some history and culture of each destination.
So come join us on American Travelers. Lake Tahoe is close to our home of Auburn, California. It's one of the most beautiful spots in the world. We're at Squaw Valley, home of the 1960 Winter Olympics. The ski resort opened in 1949 and at the time was noted for having the longest chairlift in the world.
Today we're hiking the Shirley Canyon Trail. It backs up against Squaw Peak and Squaw Valley here. It is so scenic. You have the beautiful falls that you can hike right to and get right in the water if you want. And then this trail hikes around and gets you up to the high camp. And they say that if you hike up there, they'll give you a free ride down on the tram. So anyway, you can save some money and still get a tram ride. Now, if you take the tram down at the park, down at Squaw Valley or the village there, it costs $48 per person to go up and back. But this way, we get a ride down, we get a beautiful hike, and it's a perfect day for it. So here we go.
We're starting our 3-mile trek to high camp. Things are pretty flat and it's a pleasant hike for now. We see a few running streams from leftover snowmelt. As the day goes on, so does the temperature start to rise. It's starting to get pretty uncomfortable.
Well, halfway through here, we decided to find some shade. It's really quite hot out, and there's a lot of shade right here, and just a very beautiful spot.
Okay, this natural lean-to will do. Just looking forward to where we are going. That looks pretty steep.
We're climbing up this trail, and there's a waterfall around every turn. Really spectacular. You take a look at it, you want to jump in.
The only problem with jumping in is I think you'd have some wet shoes. That means you'd have some blisters too. I think I'll pass on that one.
Dave calls me the mountain goat.
We looked at a map, and we saw that there's a lake up there on the way, so we're excited to see that too.
It's hard to follow the trail as the granite rocks are so big that you lose the trail and have to guess where it's at on the other side.
Here we are at Shirley Lake, right behind me here. Quite a climb to get up here, a lot of granite that you have to scramble and climb up. It's not exactly a kid-friendly trail, it's kind of technical. I'm a little bit tired and hungry and thirsty, but we've got water and we'll make it to the top. So that's where we're headed. We're headed to high camp and we'll be taking the tram down. Thank you, Lord.
Back to the trail. The views are so stunning. Could you imagine trying to cross this mountain range as a pioneer heading west? What about trying this in the winter months? Remember the Donner Party? Well, we all know what happened there. Kari takes a break to celebrate. I'm toughing it out though and climbing hard and fast.
Okay, we're really climbing now. This is getting closer to the top. We're about 3/4 away, and it's a struggle because it is steep, rocky, very technical. You have to watch that you don't slip and fall back down. I had to set the camera down a couple times because just to climb up these rocks was pretty crazy. Anyway, the view is worth it though. We love it up here.
Just as we were hoping to be done with the climbing thing, guess what? Snow. Can you believe it? It's June and we still see snow. Trekking through the snow in the heat is something to experience. We see a sign in the distance and hoping it's the top.
We finally made it to the top. We're at 8,200 feet. This is where the tram comes. We're going to get something to eat and we're going to take the tram back down.
The tram ride back down to the village is a great adventure in itself. You see the views of Lake Tahoe and many valleys and peaks of the Sierra Mountain Range. One notable thing that happens here is the 100-mile Western States Run, which starts here at Squaw Valley and finishes in Auburn, California. I'm so proud of Kari as she has run this race twice. The race that started it all was the Tevis Cup horse race back in 1955 when Wendell Roby rode his horse 100 miles to prove that it could be done in one day.
Well, when we started, it was 6,200 feet. We climbed up to 8,200 feet, so 2,000 feet hike up through the rocks and the canyon. Had a great time. Looking for the next trip.
Our next stop is Snowflower Lake. It's a great fishing lake. In fact, I've caught the biggest trout I've ever caught. It was 18 inches long, and that's no fish story.
You're looking at Immigrant Gap. We're on a top of a ridge just above Snowflower Lake. Back in 1845, the pioneers crossing Immigrant Gap used to lower their wagons by rope to get across this valley. Talk about an adventure! There's a lot of hiking you can do here at this resort. Snowflower is mainly an RV park, but they do have cabins and yurts for rent as well. Off in the distance you see Lake Spalding. This too is another great fishing lake.
Our next trek is to nearby Kelly Lake. It's several miles from Snowflower Lake, so we decided to drive. When we arrived, there's no one around, and the water looks so pure and clean. We fish here for an hour or so, but no luck. We're just so happy to enjoy the serene atmosphere here. Next, we head to the north shore of Lake Tahoe.
I love this place. This is the Hyatt at Incline Village. You can go out on the pier and get the most beautiful views of Lake Tahoe.
Wouldn't it be nice to own a boat here? The water is crystal clear with many shades of blue and green. We see many paddleboarders navigating the waters today. This guy is in really good shape. I bet he comes here a lot. I guess we came too early as the bar was not open. Well, we'll need to come back later today and get some drinks and some fresh fish.
Tonight we're staying at the River Ranch on Highway 89. Highway 89 is a road you take from Truckee to Tahoe City, which is located on the north shore of Lake Tahoe.
Our room is just what we're looking for. A great cabin feel and even some skis that I might consider using if it was winter. What's nice is that we're right on the river, and in the summer all of the people rafting end their trip here. I'm looking at this cabin and I think I see a bear. A pretty cool bear at that.
Hi, I'm Carrie,
I'm Dave.
and you're watching American Travelers.
Coming up, we visit the Tahoe Sands Resort with one of the most beautiful beaches on the lake. Next, we visit the Sierra Boat Company and talk with Captain Kirby.
On each episode, we'll visit the must-see attractions, but find some of those out-of-the-way hidden gems.
This is a great hotel that we found, Tahoe Sands Hotel. It's affordable. If you want the Tahoe Beach experience, this is a place to come to. The view is incredible, insane of the whole lake. The beach is great because you can walk way out and stay shallow for a long ways. It is so cute and a great price on this hotel. You can't beat it for Tahoe, so come check it out.
Tahoe Sands Resort is located on the north shore of Lake Tahoe in the town of Tahoe Vista. They offer studio and 1 or 2 bedroom suites, plus they have freestanding cabins.
The resort sits on 4 acres and was built in the 30s as lodging for a military training camp. The main lodge was built in the 60s to accommodate travelers for the Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley.
There's a nice picnic area and outdoor pool. They even have these comfortable hammocks. It looks like Carrie has the right idea. Our stay was very relaxing, and we would recommend Tahoe Sands Resort when coming to Lake Tahoe.
We like to check out some of the local things around our own home. So today we're up in North Lake Tahoe.
It's the Sierra Boat Company, and they have tons of classic boats here from the 20s up. They also sell reproduction boats that look like the old boats but with modern components. So we have a Captain Kirby's going to show us around today and give us a little history about how these boats work, and we're ready to go. In fact,
Here's
there he is
Captain
now.
Kirby,
Hey
right
guys, do I talk into the little fuzzy ball?
Yeah.
You can talk in the little fuzzy ball, yeah.
The family that owns this company has been restoring boats since the mid-70s. We have the skilled craftsmen here with the knowledge and the material and the tools and the expertise to take one of these old wooden boats all the way down to the screws and using the old wood as patterns, build a brand new boat. We have a boat from Italy. This is called a Riva. It's built in 1969. After World War II, a young man named Carlo Riva took over, came into his family business in Lake Como, Italy. Carlo Riva, the family business has been around almost 100 years in Lake Como, building boats. Carlo Riva, though, was a young guy with a lot of ambition. Nobel invented plywood in the late 40s. So what Carlo Riva wanted to do was to build boats out of plywood, get kind of a pattern going that he could pre-impose parts around, you know, and he wanted to go after the demographic of Monte Carlo. Carlo Riva came into being and started building beautiful boats. Now these boats are kind of the boat of choice at Lake Tahoe today. So what we have now is we have a huge collection of Rivas at Lake Tahoe. Then we have a brand new boat here. This is called a Hacker Craft. John Hacker actually designed his first boat in 1908. He built racing boats for the Detroit River and Hudson River for the Gold Cup racing in those days. He started building boats under his own name in the mid-20s. Wow. About that time, in Michigan. Now, about that same time, we had Garfield Wood. Garfield Wood was an inventor. And in 1915, Garfield Wood invented the hydraulic system for dump trucks. So he became a very wealthy man. He liked racing boats. And Garfield Wood was a very flamboyant guy. He would show up at the races with a tuxedo on. He would sometimes have boats with 4 engines. He was hardly ever beaten. John Hacker was just designing boats in those days. The guy that was building Garwood's boat, racing boats for him, was a man named Chris Smith, who came from an old boat building family in Michigan. He and Garfield Wood parted company in the early 20s, and Chris Smith went to found Chris Craft, and Garfield Wood started building boats under his own name. So we had 3 boat builders before World War II that sort of supplied the Gatsby crowd around the world with runabouts.
Coming up, Captain Kirby tells us about the history of these beautiful wooden boats. Then he takes us to the shop where they're working on a $1 million boat.
In 1911, a guy named Jake Obexter formed a marina down at the West Shore. And in 1928, he became a Garwood dealer. Now, in those days, there weren't a lot of roads around Lake Tahoe. So people went around by boat. There was a train that came from Truckee to Lake Tahoe and went out on a pier, and all these boats would come to this train and then disperse people and take people to various resorts and estates around the lake. So we have Garwoods here at Lake Tahoe that were sold here that have never been anywhere else. A case in point, this is 1941 Garwood. This is called a utility. It's all open inside. This was bought at the Lake Tahoe as the New York Boat Show in 1940, put on a railroad car, and transported to Lake Tahoe, and it's been here ever since. The person that buys this boat, it's not going to be their only boat.
Right.
It's going to be the boat they bust out during the Concours d'Elegance season in August, where we have the wooden boat show and all the wooden boat events are going on. It's going to be the boat they bust out maybe for a late evening cruise with wine, or maybe to take somebody to across the lake to dinner somewhere. It's not going to be, generally speaking, their everyday boat.
Good. Tell us a little bit about the Sierra Sioux.
Sort of. It's a 1937 Garwood, triple cockpit. And it's called a runabout. The runabouts had different cockpits. This Garwood was a utility because it's all open inside. So that's called a utility versus a runabout. And Sierra Sioux is a 1937 25-foot triple cockpit Garwood. She's been restored to as new condition. Wood expands and contracts with weather. In the wintertime, they shrink. You put them in the water in the summertime, they swell up. And over a period of time and lots of use, and then eventually they're going to fail. You're going to get some dry rot in there. You're going to have to put a new bottom or replace some planks. The old Chris Craft, the 50 Chris Craft just right behind you there is an example of this. You can actually see, even though this boat is in great restoration, as this wood expands and contracts, it pushes the varnish out, and you have little ridges of varnish here, and eventually it'll all have to be redone again. In modern boat building restoration and modern boat building techniques, what they do is they put a layer of 3/8 inch, it's called a kuma, and it's an African marine mahogany plywood that is put on bias. It's epoxied and screwed to the frame. Then the planks are epoxied and screwed to it. So now we're not going to get any separation. These planks don't have the ability to move back and forth. So that's the only thing you'll have to do with Sierra Sioux and with this new Hacker Craft is keep it varnished, unless of course you crash it. The Hurricane 4 is a three-point hydroplane race boat. It was built in 1948, one of the first three-point hydroplanes built. Three-point hydroplane, when it's going across the water at speed, it's got three pieces of the boat in the water. The outer edge of the sponsons and the prop. Now this boat it was built in 1948. It was one of the first Gold Cup unlimited hydros built. Of course, these became very popular, and even today they're still racing. They now have helicopter engines in them. And this boat went 139 miles an hour in 1952 at Lake Tahoe, and 163 miles an hour in 1954 at the Salton Sea in California.
Captain Kirby takes us to another part of the building where we see this cool-looking shark boat. I've never seen anything like this before.
Here is a 1955 Chris Craft Cobra. Transition to fiberglass was starting to happen in the 50s, you know. Chris Craft was kind of leaning that direction. So this is an example of a dual purpose. The fin is made out of fiberglass. The boat is traditionally made out of Philippine mahogany that Chris Craft used.
That's a beautiful
So,
boat.
yeah,
Wow.
So
Love
in
the color.
1955, Chris Craft made 55 of these 21-foot Cobras. And this is one of 55. And they only made about 4 that they put a Cadillac engine in. So this one is outfitted with the Cadillac engine. It's been refurnished and refinished to concourse condition. We could put this boat in a show and show it. And the price kind of reflects that. And none of these boats are...
$209,000. It's a beautiful boat.
asking. Yeah, it is a beautiful boat. And they're fun to drive.
It looks like fun. It kind of reminds me of an old 50s Corvette.
Yeah, that's
the way
basically it's it. Yeah,
design,
it's like
yeah.
a 50s tail fin sort of
Yeah,
thing.
very beautiful. We're going to go see the $1 million boat. It's so bright.
This is the Hornet 2.
The Hornet.
And the Hornet 2 is a very famous Lake Tahoe boat. Garwood, in 1931, built 10 or 11, we're not sure whether it was 10 or 11, of these racing hulls. It's got the boat has a step in it right here, so it's a hydroplane.
Okay, so it sits on top of the water.
Right.
Okay.
So now, back in the 20s and 30s here at Lake Tahoe, we had 2 races a year. And we had some very rich guys racing those boats, and it was important to win those races. One of the men was Henry Kaiser. Another one was Stanley Dollar Jr. of Dollar Steamship Line. John Ehrman of the Hellman banking family, Wells Fargo. Anyway, you kind of get the picture. In the fall of '38, Kaiser sent this boat down to Southern California to his friend Howard Hughes. And Howard Hughes at Hughes Aircraft stripped off the wooden deck and replaced it with this all aluminum deck with the tail fin. We had a fellow up here named Tony Brown with Western Runabouts. It was a boat rebuilder, and he found this in an orchard in Central Valley in the late 90s and bought it for $750.
Wow.
Tony stashed it for about 20 years, 15 years, until he found somebody willing to step up to the plate with a nice checkbook to restore it. So basically, he took the boat all the way down to the screws, using the old parts as pattern, built a brand new hull. The framework itself was intact. The aluminum was all beat up, the hull was beat up. The only pieces of original aluminum left in the boat are these 2 shoulder pieces right here. And you can see the pitting. So the boat came to Sierra Boat Company for power. We put a Packard in it. Very rare Packard V12. They only made 5 of them. And the engine failed. So we ended up with the boat, and we have found a buyer now. And we found a Rolls-Royce meter engine to put in it. And I'll get a ladder and show you the engine. In World War II, Rolls-Royce really basically had 2 engines out there. They had a Merlin for airplanes that was supercharged. They had a meter for tanks. It was pretty much the same engine, but one was supercharged, one wasn't. This is a meter. Makes 625 horsepower. This is the nuts and bolts of Sierra Boat Company. This is a Garwood replica. It's a replica of what they called a baby Gar, which was a 33-foot long Garwood that was very famous in the early 30s. It's getting new finish put on it. The mechanics will get in it later and redo the engines. And this is being prepared for the summer season at Lake Tahoe.
Okay, what's the work consist of?
Yeah, we use all original screws, all silicone bronze. You know, if you use the right stuff, then it lasts quite a bit longer. Some of the boats we've done, I've worked on these boats for about 37 years, so a lot of times I've even redone the same boat 3 or 4 or 5 times, something like that. So it's a lot of fun, just kind of going through them, and you know, every boat is different. Even if they came off the assembly line at the same time, they're different. You can measure the offsets are different, the hardware is different, the history is different. I just finished one boat from, that used to belong to Al Capone. It was 130 foot, 300 ton. After Al Capone owned it, Juan Batista owned it, who used to control Cuba before Castro. And you can just imagine if those boats could talk, you know, the stories they could tell, the people that were thrown off the boat, and cement shoes, and the parties, and all that kind of stuff. Well, every one of these boats is full of stories like that.
Frolic is a 1915 Hutchins boat. Back in 1915, they built boats with a planing or displacement hull. Not unlike the Garwoods and Chris Crafts that came along in the 20s and 30s, where they actually planed up on top of the water. So Frolic is a launch. It's called a launch. Just chugged along very slow. Big Boy is a boat that we're very proud of here at the Sierra Boat Company. She's a 1937 28-foot triple cockpit Garwood. And so basically, this boat was built 100% by our guys, using the old parts as the patterns, and then going on and building. All the wood in this boat is brand new. Now the goal was to get the boat ready for the 2013 Concours d'Elegance, which is held at this marina. It won Best Runabout, which is a great prize. It won Best Garwood, and it won Best of Show. We're very proud of Big Boy, but that's an example of what kind of talent and craftsmanship and dedication and attention to detail that we have here at Sierra Boat Company.
You might step in a little closer, just a tad closer.
Yeah, uncomfortably close is the way to do it. Not that close. Okay, well, when I make my first million on this show, I'll be back to see you. Thanks again for the tour.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
You bet. My pleasure. Come anytime.
Thank you, Captain Kirby.
You're welcome.
Well, our tour come to an end. Captain Kirby was fabulous. He really knows the history. We love this place. You got to come to Sierra Boat Company when you come to North Lake Tahoe.